Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers, sisters, friends, enemies, spies, all in all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. ظاهر الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله وحبيبه أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله والأرواح التي حلت بفدائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Okay, so today I'd like to talk about oppressology. That's my invention. If you want to use that word, you better pay me for the copyright. Okay, oppressology. How do you know your oppressor? And I'm trying to stay away from things like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and so forth and so on. Why? Because they never meant it. They never meant it. They never meant all those rights of people and so forth. They never meant it. They only employed it when it was inevitable or they couldn't hide it anymore. But they never meant it. These people, these European people, were savages. They were savages. And I'm not being racist for saying that. They were savages. They were killing each other out. They were decimating each other. Okay? Before Islam came on the scene. They destroyed their own science. They were so sick and tired of the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire with all of the excesses and the debauchery and stuff like that, that when they became Christian, they said, we want nothing to do with this. We want nothing to do with science. We want nothing to do with materialism. We are just going to be trying to get close to Jesus, to try to be monks and so forth and so on, as a means of compensating themselves for this. But even in the state of this, they were fighting. Even in the state of that, they were fighting. They were fighting on the basis of religion this time. Protestants versus Catholics. And the momentum that they built up, the Spanish built up in retaking Al-Andalus, in retaking Andalusia. And they took this across the world. How did it spread? How did their commercial, their political domination spread? It spread by genocide. It spread by genocide. It spread by slavery. It spread by all these things, you know. You think germ warfare is something new in the 20th century? They were doing germ warfare in the 16th and 15th centuries. What they would do is take smallpox blankets that covered infected people in Europe, not wash those blankets, pack them and send them to America and sell them to native people who did not have the resistance to smallpox. Hundreds of thousands of them died. You think Israel is the first time that they're using starvation as a weapon? Okay? You know, I'm sure you might have seen pictures of the huge mountains of buffalo skulls in the plains. Okay, black and white pictures. What they did was destroy the source of livelihood and food of these people. These are devils, okay? And in that luxury, that wealth that they got, okay, they could afford to have people who could daydream and speculate about what a beautiful world would look like. But what a beautiful world would look like for you and me, for Muslims and everybody. No, what a beautiful world the world would look like for white people in general and white men in particular. And so they'll sit down and talk about, well, democracy should be some. We hold these truths that all men are created equal. You think it meant me? I was one third of a human being. That's what they considered me. It's the same people who wrote that American Declaration of Independence. So all this stuff about universal human rights, and the right for freedom and the right for self-expression and so on and so on. This is an ideal world, because the first place where they suppressed the freedom to express yourself was in that same post-enlightenment world by that phenomenon we call fascism. Today they still try to, and they still are working on it. The North American people are the most stupid, most propagandized people in the entire planet, especially in the United States of America. Okay? So they want to give you freedom of expression, but they're going to first of all influence how you think. They never meant any of these things. So when you want to talk about oppressology, I would rather look and see what the Holy Quran tells me. And if I thought that we should have some kind of universal human rights for all peoples of the planet, I would rather all of us come together and share with each other the rights of human beings based upon their own religious steps. But I think it's a real waste of time to sit down and abide by things that people just dreamt up. They just dreamt up. It was a figment of the imagination, and this is why it is so easy for them to abandon these things whenever it suits their interest. Easy. So I'm going to talk about oppression from an Islamic point of view. Okay? Now, what is oppression? The word for oppression is dhulm. And dhulm comes from a root word which means darkness. So oppression is a kind of darkness. What do we mean by a darkness? Well, for example, darkness in the lack of hope. Darkness when you see contrary conditions of your life persisting and there's no change. It's a kind of a darkness. Darkness in the sense of something epistemological, actually, or existential. Darkness, as I described to you guys before, that you have certain realities, okay, that are not really realities, meaning the absence of positive qualities or the limitation on a positive quality, okay? Like the positive quality of, let's say, beauty. That no thing is the epitome of beauty. No thing is beauty in itself, okay? Beauty is a perfection that is applied to instances of beauty. Now, the human being is a unique creature. The human being has an imagination and can think in terms of abstractions. I'm going to give you a good example. If I say to you nothing, the word nothing, you understand what I mean. But the word nothing in itself means nothing. If I say nothing, it means that no existence whatsoever, has no existence. Okay? That's nothing. That's the meaning of nothing. No existence. Nevertheless, when we think of the word nothing, we give it an existence, a mental existence. You see? And we can operate with this. Take, for example, the zero in mathematics, for example. On one level, the zero means nothing. On another level, the zero means the essential essence of all things. That's a different story. So, a human being is situated between two places or two states of being or two states of mind. They are situated within a positive reality, which is a reality of goodness, and a negative reality, which is a reality of non-existence, meaning that whatever exists or something that might exist, you do not agree with its existence, so you negate it. You negate it in your mind, or you negate it in your relationships with people. So, let's say, for example, we have a general condition where there are human beings in the world, and human beings come in different colors and different phenotypes and different hairstyles and height and so forth and so on. We are all human beings. Our intellect tells us this. This is the reality. Somebody jumps up and says, I think that all of our problems are based upon certain people who have certain general common characteristics. And therefore those certain people are not equal to us. This is moving towards nothing. This is moving towards denying the reality of what a human being is and replacing it with something that a human being is not. But you provide excuses, explanations, and so forth to explain why that human being is not. This is dhulm. This is dhulm. So dhulm is either an action that goes against the laws of existence, the laws of justice. This is dhulm. Or dhulm could be the creation of a socio-cultural atmosphere, a social-cultural way of looking at the world that negates the reality of the world, that says the world is, instead of X, which is correct, it is Y, which is incorrect. This is dhulm. And so when you have this type of propaganda kind of control over people, when you are influencing people's view of the world, what you are doing is you are actually creating a non-world, a false world. And that is why it's called dhulm. One very important trait that we have to think about is the role of the liar, the opinion of Islam about a person who lies. And it's also a characteristic of oppressors. Somebody asked the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, They mentioned some of the most heinous crimes that are punishable in Islam by death. Okay? For example, could somebody murder? Could a Muslim murder? They asked the Holy Prophet. Can a Muslim be a murderer? He said, yes, a Muslim can be a murderer. He said, can a Muslim be an adulterer? He said, yes, a Muslim could be an adulterer. So could a Muslim be a thief? He said, yes, a Muslim could be a thief. They asked him, could a Muslim lie? He said, no, a Muslim cannot lie. Why? What's so important about lying? What makes lying so dangerous and so dastardly? Because lying is an attempt to create a false reality in the mind of the person that you are lying to. You're creating a false reality in the mind of that person you are lying to. And if you're in a constant relationship with that person, you'll always have to be reinventing a lie, creating other supportive lies to bolster the central lie. So what you are actually doing is a kind of a reverse creation. Okay, remember, the world is to be perceived. The world is to be perceived. The world, the anthropic, if you guys are interested in research, check this out, the anthropic theory. Okay? ANTHROPIC theory, which is a theory that says the earth, the creation is designed to be witnessed, to be seen. And so when you are describing a false reality to somebody, what you are doing is you are actually creating a world in their mind. Okay? That is false. This is dhulm. This is creating a darkness because you're moving people from the light into darkness. So dhulm is not just ill-treating people. Okay? Dhulm is keeping people in darkness. Dhulm is your educational system. Dhulm is your media system. Dhulm is your cultural system. All of these things create that type of subjective reality in our minds that make us orient ourselves to oppression. Remember the statement by Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X, okay? If you follow the media, it will have you loving your enemy and hating your friend, okay? This is what the zulm is. Okay, so one of the first things that I think zulm is identified with is capitalism. Yes, what is this? This is capitalism. And what somebody can say, for example, what does capitalism have to do with Islam? You know, Islam doesn't talk about capitalism. Well, I want to draw you to Surah Baqarah, verse 188. Okay? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِاتِّصَالٍ وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And do not consume each other's wealth unjustly, or use it in bribery to the rulers in order that they might aid you in consuming the property of people wrongfully while you know. Let me read this again for you. Do not consume each other's wealth unjustly, or use your wealth to bribe rulers in order that they might aid you in consuming the property of other people wrongfully while you know. Brothers and sisters, this is the definition of capitalism. You know, they want to scare us, okay? They want to scare us whenever we threaten to reject their values. They want to scare us. They want to say, okay, look, you know, we stand for democracy, which I mentioned to you guys before, okay? Democracy is a varied concept. There are all kinds of ways of applying democracy. Democracy is not a principle. It's not a principle, okay? Democracy is a tool, okay? It's a tool by which some societies use to have, to create some kind of social responsibility, have governments exercise their social responsibility. Okay? And so after 4 years, every 4 years, or every 5 years or so, if the government does not perform according to the standards of the society, then the society votes that government out. Okay? It's a method. It's like, for example, a bunch of us are sitting here, we want to decide something, we have differences of opinion, we say, okay, let's see who are the majority who would take this position. Okay? It's not a principle. It's not a principle. You know, you can have no democracy, but you can have a rulership that is advised by wise people. That's a wise system. So they will tell you if you don't have democracy or a dictatorship. That's what they do. They have reached a point now, for example, where even people with democracies are considered to be regimes. Okay? With democracies. Venezuela has a democracy. Iran has a democracy. But they call them regimes. They call them dictatorships. Why? Because it's a kind of labeling that creates a discord in your mind, so you're turned away from these people. So with their words, they are creating this. Now, when you look at capitalism, they say, you know, if you're against capitalism, you're for communism. It's not true. It's not true at all. Okay? Capitalism is something, a special situation, and free enterprise is something special. Okay? What is capitalism? Capitalism is basically using wealth to gain power on behalf of those people who have wealth. That is capitalism. And we see how it operates. Okay? One way it operates is if capitalism wants to secure your wealth, your resources, what is this going to do? It's going to speak to the hukam in their country. They'll speak to the Senate. They'll speak to the Congress. They'll speak to liberals and conservatives and so forth, and say, well, look, we have an interest here, and if you can support us with this, we can support you in that. We can support you in being elected. We could support you in being able to get kickbacks in terms of selling to military-industrial complex and so forth, and you can make a lot of money and so forth. They are using their money in order to buy influence, in order for what? For them to make more money. This is capitalism. Okay? Capitalism is not people trying to run a business, people trying to make money, people trying to be rich. That's not capitalism. Okay? That's free enterprise. Okay? Capitalism is using that wealth for advantage over other people. Some people say China is a capitalist country. China is not a capitalist country because the Chinese capitalists, or the so-called capitalists, do not have any kind of undue influence on government. Government would listen to them, but they don't have undue influence, like, for example, you have capitalists in America, like APAC, for example, that could have such an inordinate effect upon these political individuals and parties in America that they cannot win without their support. Okay, that's why I say right now we're living in a post-democratic system. So the first thing I think the oppressors in our society today, because it is run by international capitalism, okay, it is run by multinational corporations. You cannot tell me that doting Joe Biden is running the country in America. Can't say that. There's somebody behind him that keeps that program going. Doesn't matter who you are in power, whether you're Joe Biden, Donald Trump, or Barack Obama, it doesn't matter. Okay? And these are the people who are running that society. So that's the first thing I'm thinking about. Okay? This society, right now, modern society, is dominated by capitalism. Alright? So I think that the first thing that the oppressing governments and forces is either they are the capitalists themselves or they support the capitalists in taking over their country and taking over their resources. Okay? So this is the first type of person. All of them are like this. Every single one. Okay? Because this is the name of the game in this time of our existence as human beings. The other one is arrogance. Okay? This is a big one. All of them have arrogance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, فَإِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ لَعَالِي فِي الْأَرْضِ وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Says, indeed, Pharaoh was mighty in the land. He thought that he was big. And he was among those who exceeded the limits. When a person who has no control over their nafs, when they have no control over their lower selves, what they end up doing is the more power they have, the more they exceed the limits. This exceeding the limits could be in terms of their violence. This exceeding the limits could be in terms of their lack of care, in terms of destroying their environment. This exceeding the limits could be when the going is good, they just get careless and they just keep on raping a society or raping an economy until people find out. Okay? This is what we see in Africa and so on, in Congo and so forth at this particular time. Then also, because of that high lifestyle they have, they're so materialistic, they get very, very hedonistic, which is another point that they exhibit, and we will touch upon that. Okay? So Pharaoh exceeded the limits, and the biggest limit that Pharaoh exceeded was that Pharaoh spoke of himself as if he is God. Okay? When the sorcerers bow down to Allah because Hazrat Musa defeated them in his miracle, right? Pharaoh was upset with them because he thought that he should be the one to give them permission to bow down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when we look at the major oppressive countries in the world, what we find is this excess. The amount of bombing of innocent people, the destruction of infrastructure. It is clear that the United States and NATO and the West in general do not want any other model to to exist, but its own model. And it will destroy that model. Okay? When we look at the destruction of Libya, we find that Libya was talking about another type of economic doctrine. They were talking about a currency, a real currency for African money. They were talking about redistributing wealth for the people and so forth. Okay? And Libya was the jewel in North Africa. They didn't like that. They wanted to destroy it, and they did. One of the reasons why they want to destroy Iran, one of the reasons why they want to destroy Cuba, is because these societies, they know if they are left to their own, they will thrive. They will be successful. And they will be an example to other people. And this is why they have them on blockades for decades upon decades, trying to destroy any possibility of their economic development. Okay? This is a kind of an arrogance. The United States thinks that the entirety of the planet is their interest. You could be living in some island off of Greenland and you want to have an election, and they would think that your elections better be to our service, otherwise you will infiltrate your electoral process. Okay? This is arrogance. And the interesting thing about arrogance is that arrogance is the beginning of a kind of stupidity. In fact, you have many of our imams saying this, that the arrogant person is one of the most stupid people on the planet. Okay? And the reason why an arrogant person is stupid is because they think they're up there, you see. Alright? And they know everything, when in fact they don't know everything. There's a statement by Imam Zainab AS where he describes an arrogant person as being like the top of a mountain which doesn't have any soil, and rain falls upon it, and it washes away down into the valley. And the humble person is like the person in the valley. That's where all the water comes. That's where all the enlightenment comes. And so this is what we are seeing right now. Okay? Here they come. They want to take out Yemen because Yemen is interfering with their process. They steam their big aircraft carrier group, the Eisenhower, and they have all these arms and ammunition and so forth. And Yemen gave them a kicking. Okay? And they had no idea what was coming because they're too busy thinking of themselves as too powerful and so on. Very, very important. Okay? Arrogance itself, okay, leads to hubris, which is the feeling is so impervious to criticism or to attack that you lower your guard and you don't even know it. Look at the age group in their tunnels right now. Look at them. Okay? These people have nothing. Nothing. They have nothing compared to the multi-billion-dollar Israeli military power. They have nothing. But my God, with what they have, they are making a big impact. I think every one of you guys should study guerrilla war. Yes, the War of the Fleet. There's a book written called The War of the Fleet. Will tell you why guerrilla win all the time. Okay, because it's a people's war. Okay? So, arrogance is a very important aspect. And you could win against the arrogant person. Because the arrogant person is too arrogant to be able to evaluate all of the aspects of his power that he can protect, and that means he doesn't cover you. Also, one of the things that they do is govern people through their appetites. Okay? Oppressive systems, to them it is very important that the people are distracted from what matters. The people are distracted from what matters. And one of the ways, the major way to distract people from what matters is by appealing to their appetites. Appealing to their greed, appealing to their love of luxury. And because of this, you have all of these sort of, reality TV shows, keeping up with the Kardashians and so forth and so on, that people can look at this type of lifestyle and think, you know what, I'd like to have some of that. I'd like to be like that too. I'd like to, open up an Instagram page and think it to become a millionaire or what have you. Okay? This Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, I think it might have to do with distracting people from what it really matters in Palestine. Okay? It can have a big role to play like that. That's how they manipulate people. And they get people to be distracted while they do their own thing to take power and so on. Another thing that the oppressors is that they encourage corruption. Now, the word facade for corruption is defined in the lexicographies as removing things from their proper place. That is almost like the opposite of the definition of justice. Justice is putting things in their proper place. Corruption is removing things from their proper place. So for example, if a young boy talks back to his parents, that's corruption. Because their position is one that they should have a respectful relationship with their parents. If that is not taking place and they are insulting their parents, this is a kind of a corruption because things are being misplaced. And so when you look at oppressive regimes, their relationship to their environment, their relationship to people, their relationship to the people that they're oppressing is basically one that involves moving things away from their proper place. If they don't want the people they're oppressing to be educated, okay, and you deny education to them, you are denying a human right to them. You're denying an Islamic right to them. And in denying that right, you're removing it from its proper place. You're preventing it from coming to those people. So this is what facade is. And there are people who are big in facade. Now, us in the West, when we think about corruption in government, we usually tend to think in terms of, fooling around with money. All right? And then we start getting into other things. Yes, it might be extended to, affairs in public office or whatever. You know what I mean? But by and large, we tend to think of people taking money from the system. From an Islamic point of view, that's only one aspect of facade. Okay? Facade is multifaceted. So for example, if your policies towards educating children in your society is problematic, if you are trying to sexualize kids when they're 4, 5, and 6 years old, this is facade. Not because of sexualization, but because of teaching them this outside of the time when they should be aware of it. Outside of the time that they should be taught about it. Teaching them at an inappropriate time. This is the essence of the facade itself. And then secondarily, it would be the images, the books that they have for them, and so forth and so on. And so oppression, because you want to, you're undermining the natural relationships with people, because you're undermining this is what makes you an oppressive person. Take for example housing. There's never been in history until the modern period, okay, where housing was something where the majority of people in society had to be renters. This is very new. Everybody's entitled to a house in an Islamic or in a traditional environment, in a traditional society. Everybody's entitled to a house. And building a house was a community affair. Everybody in your community that, okay, Jamal and Jamila got married yesterday. Okay, let's all build a house for them. Okay, and the whole community comes together and they build your house. These things brought people together. Okay, now, for example, to build a house is so prohibitive. The taxes you have to pay, the stamp taxes they have in England and so forth and so on. It becomes next to impossible for somebody to own a house. Especially if the prices are going up all the time. This is facade. This is corruption. It is denying people, the society, freedom, a human right. That's a human right. See what I'm saying? Okay? That's not in the UN. That's not in the Universal Freedom Charter. The United Nations is not committed to eliminating the capitalization of housing. No. It's all a pipe dream. It's all figment of their imagination. You see? But these things are what we would call facade. And so, what you find in these societies is a breakdown in moral order, especially. A breakdown in moral order. Okay? Where people no longer respect each other anymore. You remember in traditional societies, you respected the human being because they were the highest of God's self-expression. They were the highest creation among Allah's creations. You know, they represented Allah's presence among them. The human being was that connecting point between the created world and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what the human being is. And what they would come and try to make you think of yourself as a mere consumer. Right? As just somebody who defines themselves by what you have rather than who you are. Okay? This is what we mean by spreading facade. So, facade is not just corruption in physical matters and so on. Facade is psychological, facade is economic, facade is cultural, and so forth and so on. My people, my African people, okay, there's a special kind of music the music industry is using, a special kind of message for us, okay, to make us, just go crazy. I mean, at one point in time, white radio DJs could create gang warfare in certain parts of the United States just by putting on some dissing song that says this is from gang so and so to so and so. That's it. People are killing each other on the street. And it's coming to a theater near you. It's coming to a community near you. We are the testing ground. We are the testing ground. And when it works with us, guess who is coming for after that? It's coming for the Latinos, it's coming for the Pakistanis, it's coming for the Arabs, and then it comes to the white people themselves. Okay? Because it's all about power and control. That's all it is. And one final point I'd like to make, and this is not exhaustive, right? There's much more one can say about this topic, okay? One other aspect is that they are pioneers of sexual immorality. These, if you look at world civilizations, right? If you look at world civilizations, you find that every civilization that on its decline, okay, on the way down to its decline, it has lost all moral compass. Okay? All moral compass. In fact, when you have Haneef that talk about the last days, coming on to the last days of mankind, you have a lot of stuff about men marrying men and women marrying women and, all kinds of crazy stuff. Today, for example, you find the whole network of pedophilia among these European elites, European and American and Canadian elites, as being something quite profound, okay, quite deep. You find that stuff is circulating around. You find that, for example, when somebody is very much deep, sunk into pleasure seeking, what happens is they start getting weird. They start getting weird. And then they start to promote that to people. And so here they come now promoting the alphabet movement, for example. Why? Because that's where their headspace is. That's what they're doing. And they want us to change our self-identification. You know, usually how we identify ourselves. I'm male, you're female. You know, I'm black, you're white. I'm from X country, you're from X country. I'm this, you know. Right? There are a lot of ways very halal ways by which we could identify ourselves. What they want to do is to replace these different ways of identifying yourself with one way or one major way of identifying yourself to people. You identify yourself to people on the basis of who you sleep with. Yes. Okay? That's how you identify yourself to people. Hi, I'm John, and I'm bi. What are you telling people? What are you telling people? Okay? I want you to identify me as that. Before we identified ourselves as oppressed and oppressor, we identified ourselves as the working class and the ruling class. We identified ourselves as, you know, maybe Irish and British, you know, of African American and you know, white American. You know, we identify ourselves in many different ways, which tend to reflect something about our objective socio-economic status and stuff like that. Okay? Now they're saying that this is the important thing. This is the new frontier in human rights. Again, human rights. They're a figment of the imagination. They can open it up to anything. To anything. I got a relationship with my telephone. Yeah, okay, then you are one of them plus people. Right? That's why they made plus, you know, because it was becoming ever continuing. Because sexuality is like this, it exists on a spectrum. It exists on a spectrum. You know, at the middle of it's a bell curve, you know. In the middle of it, you know, you have heterosexuals, and at the end you have the telephone. You know, that this small group over there. Alright? You know, so it's like again an asymptote, you know, it comes close to the line and it never touches. And so there's a whole lot of them. That's why they have the plus, because you can have LGBTQ, GFA, PQ, 2Z, HY. Let's put a plus. Take care of everything. Okay? So brothers and sisters, what I'm calling you to do is I'm calling you to action. I'm calling you to be aware of these things and to respond to them. Okay? And one of the major ways of responding after you become aware of them and you study them is to be able to use your tongue. That means you have to be able to use a keyboard. You have to be able to write. You have to be able to present. You have to be able to bring your message in an artistic way that people can pay attention to. And this is what we are called for. I said to you guys before, I mean, our community is one that tends to have bourgeois types of orientations, okay? Petty bourgeois orientations, for real. Okay? For example, in our community, there are very few people who are artists. Very few people who write poetry. Very few people who write essays. Very few people who make films. Very few people who could write scripts. Okay? Because we are all encouraged in our societies, in our families, to be doctors, lawyers, accountants, and engineers, and pharmacists maybe. Yeah, did I miss anything out? Did I miss anything? That's it. You know, you tell your dad, I'm artistic, I want to be an artist. He's like, you crazy? You're going to be poor for the rest of your life. Don't do that. Okay? Dad, I'm into literature. I like to write. What kind of job are you going to get like this? As a teacher? That's it? Okay? Go be a doctor. Make more money. You know, but when you're thinking about building society, art or the humanities, I don't like it too much, but yeah, art and politics and these type of things, right, are very important, very important. Okay? I mean, look at Hollywood, for example. Okay? I'm not talking about Hollywood and its programming, right? Just Hollywood itself. Jews created Hollywood. Okay? They wanted to be able to control their own image. Very important. They created Hollywood. And they did a masterful job. All right? Who controls our image? Who defines us? It sure ain't us. Right? It's those people who have access to depicting us. So we have to depict ourselves. You can't do that. You can't do this with medicine. Sorry. You can't do it with math. And I must say medicine and math are not good. I'm a daughter who's a doctor. You know what I mean? But I'm saying that what you need would be people who are expressive. Okay? How does Hollywood run? What's the role of Hollywood with respect to American foreign policy, for example? The role of Hollywood in affecting American policy is to get everybody on side. Whenever you see, for example, the hero of a contemporary war movie being an American Navy SEAL, okay, right? That's how you start thinking, right? You watching this movie and you're down with the hero, which is an American Navy SEAL. What does that do to your mind? Cognitive dissonance. After a while, you're going to end up being pro-American Navy SEAL and not even know how you get there because of these images that are coming to you. So we do need to fight against facade. We do need to fight against corruption, okay? And that corruption is where it wants to lead us into self-negation, okay? Which is the dark place, okay? Lead us towards nothingness. Give us a word from the Holy Prophet Muhammad and Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'd like to wrap this up by again talking about one of the martyrs of Karbala. And we enter the phase now where the male members of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are stepping forward to fight and defend Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Yesterday we talked about Ali Akbar, who was Imam Hussein's older son, who gave his life. Another was Qasim ibn Hassan. And Qasim was the son of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, who was the Imam before Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Qasim was about 13 years old. Okay? And I want to tell you something about these young people who are 13 years old, okay? Islamic culture is a warrior culture. When I say that, I don't mean Islamic culture is a culture that is warlike. It's not warlike. It's a warrior culture. There's a lot of cultures that are warrior cultures, but they're not warlike. Okay? And warrior cultures, for example, they train their youth to be able to defend themselves, to be able to defend their families. You know, they give them, tasks that is appropriate to their age. You know, for somewhere along the line, for example, if you're growing up as a Maasai, you know, somewhere along the line you have to take on a lion, for example. Of course, physically, with your mind and your ingenuity and so on and so on. Okay? So it's not a warrior culture. And so it trains their youth, okay, how to defend themselves, how to fight. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that we should teach our children to ride horses, to swim, and to shoot a bow and arrow. But today a bow and arrow is not the most important thing, all right? Okay? I'll say, for the spies out here, that's all I gotta say. All right? And so these youth were very skilled. Very skilled. We have to teach this to our young men and also our young women in this society, because the young women are the flag bearers. We have to teach them, all of them, how to defend themselves, brothers and sisters. Teach your children to defend themselves. Okay? Because when you can defend yourself, you can take a blow from somebody and you're going to say, I'm not going to retaliate because I can take you out and I don't want to do that. Rather than, I'm not retaliating because I know you're going to beat the... What I me if I stand up against you. It's a big difference. Teach your children to defend themselves. The world is getting worse. Most of Europe became right-wing in the last elections. All right? They hate Muslims. They hate you. Everybody on the street, you see a woman with hijab, you don't ask whether you're Shia or you're Sunni. Right? That's your sister. They accost that woman. You step in to equalize the odds. I saw a picture once. I saw a clip once. There was this experiment in Brighton Beach. Brighton Beach in England is a very famous beach. Everybody goes there on a hot day. Okay? And you had this white girl, wearing a vest. So it looks like a bulletproof vest, a blue one with police written on the back. And another woman, I think he was with another partner who was also a cop, she was a female. And then you had another woman who was in a burkini. Okay? They're all in on the plot. Okay? The bikini woman is presenting herself as a Muslim woman wearing a burkini on the beach, and these two are fake cops, and they accost this woman on the beach in front of people. Okay? You can't go in the water with that. You can't. Okay? But why? It's a burkini. There's not a problem with it. You just can't. If you want to go in the water with that, you have to leave. And they're actually giving this woman a hard time. And the beach is full of Muslims. The beach is full of Muslims. And you only find that out when, for example, some Jamaican woman stood up and started to argue with the cops to defend these women. That's the only time when these Jamaican women started to take on the cops defending a Muslim woman. Okay? That you heard a whole lot of these Muslims, yeah, you can't do that and stuff like that. Like, whoa, there are so many of you guys on the beach and nobody said anything. Okay? This can't continue. Because when I became a Muslim in 1978, 1979, alright, a lot of brothers when they're on the street and they see their sisters, they don't talk to them or anything like that, but I got your number. I keep my eyes on you. Nobody can mess with you. They have to go through me. Okay? That's how it was. Okay? And that's how it's going to return. And so we're going to teach over you. We're going to teach those boys to defend their mothers and their sisters and any woman out there. Okay? When you hear that verse, Ar-Rijal Qawwamuna 'ala Nisa, okay? That doesn't just mean, your wife and nafaka and this type of stuff. That means all women, okay? Men are the supporters of all women. Men are the empowered.